Okay, so first up, before I jump into this video, even though it's almost never windy here in Bendigo, today it is blowing a gale, so you are going to hear banging noises and stuff in the background. I have no control over that. This house is about 100 years old, so the windows rattle and just things rattle and clunk when it gets windy. Also, I need to offer some clarification and I guess a retraction. I was under the impression that Lansdowne Station Road was at a lower level than Gairloch Road. That was from basically looking at elevation maps, but having to guess on those elevation maps the location of the houses that I was looking at, because it wasn't like satellite, it was just a plain elevation thing. So it turns out that thank you to Chelsea, who has walked the area, driven the area, and she let me know that yes, definitely Lansdowne Station Road is at a higher elevation than Gairloch Road. So even though when you look at the images and everything from 1407, it looks like it all drops away because you see like clear sky through the trees. It's undulating. So there's actually hilly bits on Lansdowne Station Road. So it turns out that I was wrong. So I apologise for that. I've also done a little bit of extra research and I can confirm that the neighbour Brad Wong actually does definitely live on Lansdowne Station Road. So I apologise. I don't usually make mistakes like that. Maps aren't my strong point, I will admit. But I do apologise. Turns out that actually the terrain is a bit different to what I imagined or to what I thought from looking at the maps. Okay, so moving on, now that I've had to eat humble pie, let's talk about the people who found the blanket. So, amongst all the document releases, there's one document in particular that discusses interviews with Hayden, Hayley, and Hayden's girlfriend, Emily. And I haven't actually heard anyone discussing this. I think everyone's been so caught up on discussing the vehicle and also the time frame, the 8:28 time frame with Malaya, that they just seem to have overlooked the fact that we have new information here in terms of records of interview with those three individuals. So I'm going to first of all go through those sections from the relevant document. And what I've noticed is that there's only one document that has that. So it's possible that many people like myself may have just thought, okay, well, these documents are probably all very much the same. Turns out they're not. So I'm going to go through what is in the document first regarding the interviews with Hayley, Hayden and Emily. And then I'm going to go back to the audio from that FOG channel where you have Hayley and then Cheryl and Logan discovering the blanket. I'm not going to muddy the waters in this video with having a look at the many, many different contradictions from Daniel with regards to the blanket, because I think we've heard plenty of that recently. What I am going to do is just focus on the individuals that were there. So if you're after copies of these documents, they are available on my Patreon account. The link for that is in the description section for this video. You can join for free and you can download the documents for free. There are paid tiers. I think there's like a $1 tier or a $2 tier, or I made the lowest possible tiers available for anyone who wanted to just support my channel in that way. But in terms of if you just want to go there to get documents, then you just go over, you just sign up using your email. You don't need to pay anything, it doesn't cost you anything, and you can download all the documents that are there on my Patreon. If you followed the Madeline Soto case, then there are a wealth of documents from the Maddie Soto case also. And there's also a handful of documents from the Kylie Rodney case. So what we've got here is essentially an extended version of the account in the documents regarding to the pink blanket. So it has the summary of the events around the pink blanket, and then it has record of interviews with Hayley, Hayden and Emily. Okay, so pink blanket located during search. On May 2nd, 2025, family members taking part in the search for Jack and Lily located a pink blanket. The following is a summary. Constables Gagnon and Constables Mason were at Jack and Lily's residence on May 2nd, around 4 p.m, when Hayley Ferdinand, Hayden Murray Smith, and Hayden's girlfriend came out of the woods to say they found a pink blanket in the woods, in a tree on Lansdowne Station Road. Now, I emailed the RCMP to clarify that, and it was Lansdowne Road, not Lansdowne Station Road. That was a mistake in this document. They showed a picture to Malaya and Daniel, who confirmed the blanket belonged to Lily. Not quite how that worked. They showed Daniel, who said, "That's not Lily's blanket." Then they showed Malaya, and she said, "Yeah, that's Lily's." Constable Gagnon, Constable Mason drove Hayley, Hayden and Hayden's girlfriend back to the location where they saw the blanket. Constable Gagnon seized the blanket. Now, I just want to say something here. There's a new claim from Daniel Martel that there were there was a blanket and the piece of blanket that was found. And I just want to point out that in terms of dispatch audio, and you can hop over to Plunder True Crime to listen to it if you wish. She has a series of videos that are the dispatch audio. In terms of that, the only references you hear is to the piece of blanket in the tree. Anyway, moving on. Corporal Mutton and his police dog were called to the area. He took photographs of the blanket. He walked for about 1 kilometre in the area with his dog on an adjacent trail. They did not pick up a scent to complete a track. So the fact that the dog did not pick up a trail tells us that the blanket was there, but unless they happened to have been in a vehicle, Lily and Jack were not there at any point in time. They certainly were not there on foot. The other part of the blanket was seized from Malaya and Daniel's house by Corporal Rice on May 4th at 9:09 p.m. It was located inside a trash bag at the end of the driveway. Now, what bothers me with this is that is 2 days after the piece of blanket was found. And yet, according to Daniel's accounts, him and Justin immediately went and checked in the rubbish and checked, and the blanket was still there, right at the very, very bottom of the bag, and there just happened to be a hole the size of a hand in that bag. Because, sure, everyone wants to open or stick their hand through a rubbish bag. We'll be discussing that in a different video anyway. So on May 5th, 2025 at 11:07 a.m, Constable Gagnon showed Corporal Tichonchuk. Sorry, there are some really amazing names that I just can't pronounce. the seized blanket and she compared it with the image of the blanket seized from the residence. She believed they were pieces of the same blanket. After Corporal T checked to confirm it was the same blanket, she drove to the location where the blanket was seized. She confirmed it was exactly 1 kilometre from Jack and Lily's residence. Now, I just want to comment on that because I have measured the distance from the house down the driveway and then along to the location where the blanket was found. I've also measured the distance from the end of the driveway, like on Gairloch Road, to the location where the blanket was found. And I do not come up with 1 kilometre. So that's got me a little bit curious also. I know Daphne's got connections in the area, so maybe she can organise for her connection to clock the distance if they set their odometer as they go past the driveway at Gairloch Road and then drive to the location where the blanket was and see what they come up with. Just a thought. Okay, this is the new information that we have. Statements related to the pink blanket. On July 8, 2025, Constable Himmelman and Constable Hall obtained a statement from Hayley. The following is a summary. Hayley said she is stepsisters with Malaya, so Lily and Jack are her niece and nephew. Hayley said Malaya had cut out her family members and she had not seen Malaya or the kids in 2 years. Shame on you, Malaya. That is your children's family too, not just your family. And maybe, had you not cut all these people out of your life, your children might still be here. Hayley saw that the children were missing on Facebook. Well, that sucks too. After she got home from work on May 2nd, 2025, and then went to Lansdowne to help with the search around 2 or 2:30 p.m. They went home around 2 a.m. and then went back on Saturday to search as well. I wonder what all these family members think about Malaya and Daniel and that now pushing for, oh, the children were definitely abducted. They never wandered off into the woods. I mean, we're talking about someone going out and searching till 2 a.m. for their niece and nephew and then going back the next day when they were exhausted. And you know what? I would do that for my nieces and nephew too. So to hear this crap coming from Malaya and coming from Daniel's family, I would really love to hear from these people, these family members who bent over backwards trying to find these children. I'd love to hear their perspective on this. Now, what I find interesting is that we heard from Cheryl that she says she was there with Hayden and Hayley and that when they found the piece of blanket. And I gather they were probably all in the same car. But there's no mention of her in these documents. Hayley said she went searching on Friday with her brother Hayden and Hayden's girlfriend Emily. While searching, they found a piece of a pink blanket on a tree with 2 bigger sized shirts on the ground just below. Hayden took pictures. The blanket was at the end of a logging or ATV trail. Hayley described the blanket as hanging on a branch, like it was thrown or set there. Hayley said she did not think any of them touched the blanket. She also believed the shirts were rags and didn't have anything to do with the blanket. What I find curious is Daniel's claims that, was it 2 of his shirts went missing? I'm like, why is Daniel trying so hard to control the narrative when it comes to this piece of blanket? Now, just a note here, and that is that She's got down here as a footnote, on July 14th, I listened to the audio statement of Hayley Ferdinand. So what the information she's putting here is based on her listening to the audio statement as opposed to her basically rewriting what someone put in a record of interview. So this is her own record of interview, essentially. That may be neither here nor there, but you would kind of expect that someone that was in a senior position who is writing documents like this, if they are recounting a record of interview, that they're going to be pretty accurate with their details and not make mistakes. You'd think, but like I said, I've gone through all the documents and all the actual audio interviews from the Maddie Soto case. And when you have detectives who've been on the job for 10 years or more making mistakes in their record of interview, then, yeah, it happens. Malaya confirmed the blanket belonged to Lily. It was previously used to block a window and the other half was in a garbage bag, Hayley thought. But she heard this from other people. So for those of you who may not have seen this image before, that window definitely has something pink in it. Now, I've kind of half covered up the image with Lily with her backpack, but if you look kind of in line with Lily's chin, you can see that this photo was taken at the same time that the four-wheeler was parked in front of that little car. So at some point in time, that pink whatever was removed from that window, because all subsequent photos do not show anything pink hanging in that window. And yes, I have included this image of Lily because that is Lily with her LOL school bag. Now the image behind her is kind of dark, but even still, it looks like the darker pink on her bag matches the pink on whatever it is hanging from that window. Given that we've heard this comment that Malaya said that the blanket was used to block a window, I can't help wondering what the heck is the story here. Especially because, according to Malaya, she removed it from the window because the weather had gotten warmer. Well, I checked the temperatures around the time that Lily and Jack went missing, and the overnight temperatures were still around freezing. In Celsius terms, it was 1 or 2 degrees. Fahrenheit, I'm not sure, but, basically ruddy freezing. All I can say is that I think the forensics on those 2 pieces of blanket are going to be quite interesting. Okay, back to this. Hayley said the cops went to the area and took the blanket. The canine came out and walked that trail, which we heard in the report. On July 12th, Constable Himmelman and Constable Robinson obtained a statement from Hayden. The following is a summary. Hayden said Malaya is his sister and Lily and Jack are his niece and nephew. Hayden said he got a text saying the children were missing on May 2nd, 2025, so he went to Lansdowne to help. His grandmother Patty went with him. It looks like this family is a little bit dysfunctional. Like, he got a text saying that they were missing. Now, clearly there is some sort of relationship between him and Hayley, but he didn't bother contacting her. She saw it on Facebook. Hayden went with Hayley and his girlfriend, Emily, to search. They drove around and Hayden saw a piece of fabric in a tree. He told his sister to stop so he could go and look at it. Hayden said it was a blanket on a branch. He said it looked like it could have blown there or someone threw it there. He said the tree was a small, bushy tree, more of an older. Are they the deciduous ones or the evergreens? Because we had different accounts from Janie and Daniel as to which tree the blanket was in. He said the blanket was hanging 3 or 3.5 feet off the ground and hung up like a bath towel. He described it as pink, fuzzy girly blanket. It was located right on the shoulder of the main road at the corner. He said they went right back and got the police officers who came to look at it. The canine unit came and took the dog up the trail. Hayden said he took a photo of the blanket on Emily's phone and went back to show Malaya. Malaya said it might be Lily's, but she threw it out in the garbage. Hayden said he did not know what happened with the blanket after that. Nobody's stories match here. Hayden said there was also clothes on the ground, but they looked old and ripped up. And now we have Hayden's girlfriend. On July 12th, Constable Himmelman and Robinson obtained a statement from Emily Ogley. The following is a summary. Emily said she's Hayden's girlfriend. They were staying at Paddy's and she woke up to a phone call saying the children were missing. They went out there and started to help search. She woke up to a phone call. So she woke up to a phone call, but Hayden said he got a text saying the children were missing. So was it a text or was it a phone call? And exactly what time did this phone call occur? Because saying she woke up to it, either these people all sleep in really, really late, or maybe she got a phone call, or they got a phone call around 8:30, around the same time that Malaya tried to ring Cindy. Anyway, moving on. They went out there and started to help search. She went with Hayden and Hayley in the woods. They drove around. They saw kids' clothing hanging on a tree. They got out of the car and were looking at them. They didn't touch them because they thought it might be evidence. I don't think she's a very good witness. Was she maybe following Daniel's habits? Emily said there were 2 t-shirts and a blanket. Okay, now she clarifies. So she's probably meaning she saw what looked like clothing hanging on a tree. The blanket was hanging in the tree and the clothes were on the ground. Emily took photographs as soon as they got out of the car. They drove back and asked Malaya if the clothing belonged to the kids. Malaya said the blanket belonged to Lily, but the clothing did not. Then they told the police, who went to investigate. And here we have another bit of information that craps all over Daniel's lies. Emily looked at the data from the photographs and saw they were taken on May 2nd, 2025 at 3:24 p.m. Daniel claims that it was around 4 o'clock when the blanket was discovered, and they checked the footage on the bus, which had gone through before the blanket was discovered, and it wasn't there. Well, the bus went through after the blanket was discovered, and in fact, given the time frame, the bus footage should show people in the area, because it sounds like these guys went back to the house, got Constable Mason and the other one, and then they went and showed them where it was. Meaning that around the time the bus went through, first of all, the blanket definitely was there because there is a photograph to prove that. And secondly, it is highly likely that there were people in that location. So I actually think that the information in this document is just confusing things even more. Definitely something that I'm going to do a deep dive on, I'll tell you that now. So now I'm going to go through the audio from that fog channel where we have Hayley, and then we have Cheryl, and then we have Cheryl and Logan discussing the blanket.
Yeah, so just touching on the subject of the blanket, I've kept pretty quiet. I have a son of my own, right? And Lily and Jack are my niece and nephew. But yeah, the subject of the blanket, it was found on a tree branch on Lansdowne Station Road in the evening of day one. It was used, or the other part of the blanket was used for a window or a door at the home, and it was thrown out. And this one just ended up on a tree, I guess. But yeah.
I understand one of you took a photograph of the blanket and took it back to Malaya for identification.
Yes, Hayden and I did. Yeah.
So you called the police, who went and, I guess, collected it?
No, the police were already down searching that area, but it was in such an open spot that cops were already down there and it wasn't seen earlier on. So it's just all a little mysterious, you know?
So was search and rescue in that area?
I don't believe on day one, right down there right away. So I was there from the get-go of when everything started. But yeah, so I don't know how it was missed because it was right on like the start of like a logging road or ATV trail right by the main Lansdowne Station Road, the dirt road. But yeah.
Okay, now you can see where the confusion comes from in terms of why the report calls it Lansdowne Station Road, because she keeps referring to it as Lansdowne Station Road, but her description makes it clear that it is Lansdowne Road. She describes it as being at the beginning of that trail. She also mentions that there were no searchers around, or, no RCMP, meaning that they weren't at the location or beyond the location of base. And the thing is, RCMP set up their base pretty much at the beginning of Lansdowne Station Road. And when you listen to the audio, the dispatch from the first day, that was closed off. So Hayley and Hayden and that wouldn't have been able to go along that road anyway. Not to be able to be like a kilometre from the 1407. So she's confused. It's definitely Lansdowne Road. And like I said, I did that email to RCMP and checked with them, and they confirmed that.
And the other half, right, was found in the garbage.
I believe so. I wasn't back at the house for that to know that, but that's what I'm hearing. Yeah, that's what Logan said. And yeah, so. And I mean, quite a ways down the road, like down the paved road from where they lived, up a dirt road, a good at least a mile or two. So yeah.
So I'm wondering if this is the first time that anyone questioned how that piece of blanket wasn't spotted earlier. And if this is where it's all spiralled from, her turning around and going, I don't know how it was missed. And then suddenly Daniel and everyone jumped on board and decided to blame it on her and Hayden. But what's interesting is that then she's asked about the piece being in the bin, and she said, we weren't back for that. Logan said that's what happened. Now, I am just trying to figure out in terms of timeline, because I think she said to the RCMP that they were searching until 2 a.m. So were they out searching still? In which case, where was Paddy and Cindy and Wade? Because they had arrived by that part of the afternoon, or hadn't. Well, Paddy was there because she arrived with Hayden. But where were Cindy and Wade at that point? Had they arrived yet? They must have arrived, surely, by then. By like 3:30, close to 4 o'clock. Because what I'm just wondering about here is, were there any other witnesses from Malaya's side of the family who were on the property at the time that Daniel and Justin apparently found the blanket in the bin and filmed it.
I just wanted to kind of touch on a few things that you said. So we were the ones that actually found the blanket, and as far as I knew, the blanket was on the railing, not in the garbage.
So here's the first time we hear mention of the other piece of blanket being over the railing as opposed to in the rubbish. Which is really curious, especially when you have this image that I showed you earlier of what is presumably the same blanket hanging in the window. I have to say the inconsistencies between the statements and the desperate need by Daniel and all his little drones to try and push the narrative of the blanket being planted by someone in Malaya's family, and also this whole emphasis on we went and we checked in the rubbish and we recorded it. I do think that there's got to be some significance to this blanket. Otherwise, why are there so many lies?
I don't know. And the blanket was in the garbage. The cops even went and found the other half in there.
Yeah, as far as I knew, the blanket was on the railing.
Yeah, no, the cops came and collected the other piece. After the other piece was grabbed from the trees.
Yes, where we found it.
I'm still trying to place who you are, but
Okay, I left that little comment from Cheryl in on the end of that little bit there. I'm still trying to place who you are, but because that was basically a very, very passive-aggressive way of telling Cheryl, you're a nobody, what you're saying doesn't matter. You're not family, shut your mouth, that kind of thing. So Cheryl is doubling down with she heard that the blanket was on the railing. And Logan says, no, it was in the garbage. The cops even went and found it, or something along those lines. She's saying the cops found it in the garbage, which of course is a different story to the one we have from Daniel and Justin. Well, Daniel, because Justin doesn't speak. Justin is a ghost. But the story from Daniel, of course, is that he went and found it in the garbage and they filmed finding it in the garbage, which makes no sense, because if you already knew it was in the garbage, then why would you need to go and film finding it in the garbage other than to prove that there was a hole in the garbage bag when you found it? Which is all well and good, but we don't know what happened before you started filming. And going back to what I was saying before about it ending up in the rubbish, and Cheryl saying that she'd heard it was on the railing. Now, if they had sent that image back to Malaya, and clearly the image was also sent to Daniel, and the answer was no, that, that's not Lily's blanket, it would have been hard to have put it in a bag and put it down in the rubbish down on the road there with so many people around during the day. If it was on the railing, hypothetically, is it possible that Daniel pulled it inside, hid it somewhere, and then after everyone was no longer around, or when people were asleep, put it in the bin? Because don't forget also, you've got a 2-day difference between when the piece of blanket was found in the tree and when the blanket was retrieved from the rubbish. The other part of the blanket was seized from Malaya and Daniel's house by Corporal Rice on May 4th at 9:09 p.m. It was located inside a trash bag at the end of the driveway. So someone finds a piece of blanket, and apparently Daniel thinks it's suspicious. So he goes and he checks the rubbish bag. This is according to his story, and sees that the blanket is still there. This is supposedly on the 2nd, when he's got all these people around. Now, if he truly suspected that someone had planted that piece of blanket, and he saw that the rest of the blanket was still in the rubbish, wouldn't he then be worrying that they might then take more of the blanket and place it somewhere else? Wouldn't you think he would actually immediately mention it to the RCMP? Say, hey, there's a blanket in the rubbish here. Now, we don't know in terms of when he told them and when they collected it, but they are saying here it was located inside a trash bag. So it remained in that trash bag for 2 days, if we believe Daniel's story. Or we could go with the more logical conclusion that when the message was sent to Daniel and Malaya with the picture of the piece of blanket in the tree, someone panicked and pulled the blanket down from that window, hence the reason there's no other images that show that blanket in that window. The blanket was stashed somewhere until the people were gone. We know that on May the 3rd, a good 24 hours before it was located inside a trash bag, we know that on May the 3rd, everybody cleared out, giving a good 24 hours to basically put the blanket in a trash bag, fill the rest of the bag up with trash, and put it down on the road. On that turkey show, Daniel claimed that it was in the bottom of the trash bag. So how did it go from, on May the 2nd, being hanging in a window, to possibly being over a rail, to May the 4th being in the bottom of a trash bag? A bag that was double bagged apparently, and the blanket was underneath all the trash. Sounds suspicious as to me.
Because it was on the railing, that's what I was told.
But if you were
Whether
there,
it was on the
took it from the
railing
garbage
or
can.
in
I'm
the
just
garbage, it
confused.
doesn't
Hey,
really
hold on.
matter.
Nicole, you said about you were like coming in here to correct people about the blanket.
Yes,
And you,
because it was on the railing, that's what I was told.
but if you were
Whether
there,
it was on the
took it from the
railing
garbage can.
or in
I'm
the
just
garbage,
confused.
I was told it was on the railing. But I really don't know. I don't think it matters. All I know is the blanket was found in the trees up on the road. I wouldn't even call it half. Just a piece of it. Did I see it on the railing? No. Did I see it in the tree? Yes. Did I see it in the garbage?
No, but the cops know it was in the garbage.
Yeah.
So Daniel's claiming that he would like for more people to do a polygraph test. And you know what? Maybe that's not such a bad idea, and maybe they should start with Logan Mackenzie. Because did you catch what she said there? So Cheryl was insisting that she had been told the blanket was on the railing. Now, why would someone tell you that if it wasn't truthful? The only people that have got anything to gain by lying about the blanket, as far as we know, are Malaya, Daniel, and Janie. And potentially Logan, because it seems like she is there with everything that occurs with this blanket. So Cheryl points out, look, I didn't see it on the railing, but I also didn't see it in the garbage. And Logan fires back with, no, but we, pauses, the cops know it was in the garbage. We what, Logan? Has she given herself away? No, but we put it in the garbage. We know it was in the garbage. Why the we? And why this sudden change of direction as soon as she said we? Leakage?
No,
I seen it in the
I
tree
did it.
too. That's why I knew.
You what?
I said I was there when you found it in the tree. Like I was there 2 seconds after you guys found it.
Yes, yeah.
So Logan had this major disliking for Cheryl, which you heard. And you also heard them talking over each other. And then now Logan is so eager to basically point out that she's far more important than Cheryl. So Cheryl says, well, we found the blanket, essentially. And Logan's like, oh, I was there. I arrived 2 seconds after you. So she was there when they found the blanket. She was there when Daniel found the rest of it in the rubbish. She can apparently confirm every element of this story. Makes me think that the RCMP really should be questioning Logan McKenzie.
No, see when Daniel found out about the blanket in the tree, because he was in the woods before knowing about it, and he found out after Malaya left about it. He went out to the garbage because we all mentioned the blanket. So he went out. He goes, I put that blanket in the garbage. I'm going to say about a week ago because it was ripped. So him and I forget who else. I think it was his brother. Went out, videoed it all, opening up the garbage and like checking around, and you could see it. So like we called the cops right after that. Like the RCMPs came right out after that. But yeah, it was in the garbage. The RCMPs came out and collected it and all. The bag was still in the garbage bin and the garbage bin was closed.
Wow, those lies just trip off her tongue, don't they? So now she's saying the blanket was found after Malaya had left. Daniel only found out about it after Malaya had left. Well, that's actually not truthful, because the RCMP reports specifically state that Daniel was asked about the blanket, and he said, no, that's not Lily's blanket. And then they asked Malaya, who said, yes, that is Lily's blanket. Meaning Daniel was asked about that blanket before Malaya left, for starters. But not only that, he heard it from the RCMP. He did not hear it from Logan and company 2 days later, which was when him and Justin apparently went and found it in the bin, which was still closed. And she's saying, basically, they told him about it. He went and discovered that it was still there. And then he got RCMP to come and take it straight away. That does not fit at all. Because he was told by RCMP on the same day that the blanket was found, on the Friday, he was asked if he recognised it. He said no. We have the audio from the dispatch where they talk about showing it to the mother. And then it just trips off her tongue, saying, oh, he said he threw it out about a week ago, like a week before it was all found. Which we know is complete utter BS. This small amount of audio that we have of Logan talking about the blanket suggests to me that she's in this up to her neck. Because she has quite blatantly lied. People are so busy running around chasing Daniel's narratives that they actually haven't looked at the other people who spoke about this blanket, the other information that we've been given about this blanket. And apparently no one has noticed that in this whole act about the blanket, that Logan Mackenzie takes centre stage. So my question is this: why was it so important for Janie, Daniel and Logan to all lie about this blanket? And it would appear that for at least part of it, Malaya was in on it, because she told the RCMP that she had taken it down from the window because the weather had gotten warmer. And yet, when this search began, that blanket was still in the window, which to me suggests that when Hayley sent Malaya the picture, or Emily sent Malaya the picture, whoever sent it to her, Malaya panicked and went, oh no, that's going to be matched to this blanket that's hanging here in the window right now, this minute. And that she went and pulled it down from that window as soon as she got the message or the image from Hayley in that. And you'll note that in terms of statements that Malaya gives, she doesn't tend to give outright lies. Instead, she doesn't give the full story. So when she was asked about the blanket, she never said anything about it going in the rubbish. All she said was that it had been up somewhere. I'd have to look it up. I'm not going to do it for this video because I think this definitely warrants a deep dive. But her comments were basically that she had had it hanging up to keep the cold out, but she had removed it because it was getting warmer. She never said anything about it being thrown out. That was introduced by Daniel and Logan. So, did she simply pull it down and put it somewhere? And then Daniel thought he would hide it, thought he would throw it away and get away with that. And then something made them panic. There really are a lot of contradictory stories, especially when we're talking about one itty-bitty little piece of blanket. Anyway, I'm going to leave it at that. I have a list of timestamps to go and get more audio, and I'm going to do a deep dive into this in the coming week. I seem to be forever trying to keep up with the videos that I want to do here, but I will definitely be doing this. There's a few other ones that I have planned as well that I need to get into, and I'm still working on a few projects behind the scenes that are bigger projects, one of which of course is Malaya's handwriting. That is one of those things where I'm working on it when I can, and another even bigger project which I won't go into just now. So on that note, thanks for listening. If you are new to my channel, please subscribe. And of course also please hit the like button, get this video out into the algorithm, and leave a comment below. Let me know your thoughts. What do you think is the story when it comes to this blanket? So thank you, and I'll catch you in the next one.